We know he wants to bring a message of unity, but what specifically does the former president need to say, especially to reach the voters who may not yet be all in on him?
I think he needs to focus on his agenda because it is an agenda that is good for America. As you saw with the previous speakers, there were Hispanics, there were African Americans, there were immigrants, there was a union leader who previously voted for President Biden and is now with President Trump because he is the one who created jobs, he brought economic prosperity, he secured our border, he was making America's cities safe. And that's what people want. And if they want that, they have to vote for President Trump. And I hope that President Trump will kind of put in contrast what it was like, remind people what it was like under his administration in those realms, and then that stark difference with what we're experiencing right now. People are very upset across the country, obviously, for many different reasons. In New York City, people are fed up with this mass illegal immigration crisis that is plaguing our city. We saw 2 police officers shot. We saw a 13-year-old girl raped by illegal immigrants. Just 2 of the many crimes, thousands of crimes, as a matter of fact, that have been occurring in our city because of President Biden's policy. He did 60 policy changes, allowed these individuals to come in. In the case of these crimes that I've mentioned, he actually directed the CBP to allow those individuals into the interior. They were caught and they were released. That won't happen under President Trump. And so I think people want to see our streets restored.
Typically, when we spend time with you, and it's nice to do it in person, we're always doing something with an earpiece, talking to each other through a camera. You bring a clinic on the border. That's what I associate with you. Donald Trump thinks he can win New York, which would be pretty remarkable for a Republican in this day and age. Does the border get him there? The experience that people are having in New York City with migrants living in hotels, the rest of it, we've heard from Eric Adams about this, a Democrat. Is that the issue?
Look, I think it's going to get him close. I think, unfortunately, New York City politicians, they've tried to vilify this man for the last 9 years. They have thrown everything they can out of him, vile rhetoric, lies, mischaracterizations. You saw this political persecution by Alvin Bragg. But I think if people pull back and actually look what's happening, the Democrats' agenda in New York has just been destructive. It has driven New Yorkers out. People feel less safe. They are less safe. And I think no one's turning a blind eye to what's happening with illegal immigration. They've turned 200 hotels into shelters. And there's people in there who are dangerous people. Not everyone, but a lot of them are. There are murderers, there are gang members, there are people who've stabbed individuals, robbed people. You had the sex assault, as I mentioned before. These people are being arrested and oftentimes are being released back onto the street and going to the luxury hotel room that you and I and the taxpayers are paying for. That is wrong. And if people are fed up with it, they need to vote for President Trump. Likewise, look at the amount of money these illegal immigrants are getting in services. They're not only just getting a free hotel room, they're getting food, health care, all sorts of laundry services, legal services. They're getting more than what a senior citizen is earning in Social Security. I mean, that's out of control. And again, we have to remember to put our American citizens first. Donald Trump supports immigrants. He's married to an immigrant. He wants to make sure they're coming legally and that they're vetted so they're not creating a dangerous situation for our citizens.
So if we know the border and migration is an issue that resonates in New York, another one is taxes. And earlier today, we spoke with the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, Congressman Jason Smith of Missouri, about the SALT cap. This is what he had to say.
At the end of 2025, the SALT cap is unlimited. So it's no longer a $10,000 cap. It's millions if necessary. There's no cap. So that's going to be a big part of the discussion in the tax cuts ask. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of negotiation with our friends in New York and New Jersey. And if the elections go well and more Republicans come from New Jersey and New York, we're going to hear even more about it.
Congressman, you're probably one of those friends from New York or New Jersey that the chairman was referring to there. Is that also an issue that could help, if not win New York as a blue state at the presidential level, hold on to some of those contested seats?
Well, look, I'm on the Ways and Means Committee with Chairman Smith, so I've been making it an issue, and I think certainly we will be achieving some type of SALT relief. I'm also working on increasing the standard deduction that will help a lot of Americans across the country, 350,000 families in my district alone, but 1.7 million Americans nationwide. What I will say is that we need to keep on the path of pro-growth, pro-jobs policies. And that's what President Trump's Tax Cut and Jobs Act brought. But let's also remember the reason we want SALT is because of the Democrat mayors and governors who believe that taxpayers are ATM machines and they keep increasing the levy year after year. We just saw it in New York City do it again to provide billions of dollars in services to people who just arrived into this country, who paid the drug cartels to get over the southern border to get here. That is wrong. And so if we really want tax relief, we should be looking at our mayors and governors who are abusing taxpayers, saying enough is enough, stop spending so recklessly. You know, New York State's budget is out of control. It's about 240 billion these days. I mean, that's a lot of money. It was 125 billion, the annual budget. When I was in the state legislature, it has nearly doubled. And it is because, again, the reckless spending and policies where Democrats are spending like a bunch of drunken sailors. And so I believe that we need to provide some type of federal tax relief where we can. President Trump lowered the tax rate. He helped lift wages for the American people. He doubled the child tax credit for families. But in addition to that, he provided jobs and opportunity, bringing the unemployment to its lowest level for minorities, for women. And I mean, that's a record of success that we want to continue. But we do want some type of SALT relief if we can get it.